Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and the iPhone 14 Pro Max and iPhone 15 Pro Max are both great phones and very similar in a lot of ways. However, this year Apple added some additional upgrades with the camera, the processor, and more, so I wanted to help you decide which one would be best for you. So we'll compare everything from the camera to battery life to the displays and everything else. Now, the first thing is the iPhone 14 Pro Max is no longer available new from Apple, but it's sold at authorized retailers or used or at some other stores as well. Apple continues to sell the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which replaced it. They typically do this every year, and the iPhone 14 Pro Max and 15 Pro Max have very similar costs. The 15 Pro Max starts at $1,199 and goes up to $1,599. They dropped the 128 gigabyte option and went with 256, 512, or 1 terabyte. Based on that, if you start at 256, both phones started at the same price. Now with the colors, of course, the iPhone 14 Pro Max we're pretty familiar with. We had deep purple, gold, silver, and space black like I have here. With the 15 Pro Max, we had a natural titanium color. Apple introduced this new blue color. We also have black and white titanium. Now, the build and materials are a little bit different this year. Last year and many years before, the premium phones were all made of stainless steel. It's really nice, has a shiny edge, does show a lot of fingerprints, but seems to hold up pretty well, but adds a lot of weight. Of course, we have glass on the back and the front as well, and we have ceramic shield with that. However, on the new phone, we now have titanium. Not only is it lighter, but it's more durable. It does have some issues when it comes to heat, we'll talk about a little bit later, but in general, it does show fingerprints. You can wipe those off just the same. It has a coating on it that Apple says is a PVD coating that may have some durability issues. We'll talk about that as well. Now this year, we have USB-C on the 15 Pro Max. And with USB-C this year, not only do we have faster transfer speeds at 10 gigabits per second, unfortunately we don't have the Thunderbolt of 40 gigabits per second, but it allows better transfer speeds, additional connectivity with USB-C with a different drive and SSD, outputs to monitors and more, just like I'm using right now to record this video, with a separate 15 Pro Max. So that's a great upgrade. It's the same cable now for their Macs, their iPads, and the iPhone. So that's a big upgrade for a lot of people. No charging differences, though, as far as that goes. When it comes to the overall dimensions, well, there's a slight difference here this year. With the 15 Pro Max, it's slightly narrower, as you can see here. So they're slightly narrower. And also, it's slightly shorter. So a little bit different in overall size. It's also a lot lighter. The 14 Pro Max comes in at 8.47 ounces, where the 15 Pro Max comes in at 7.81 ounces. So a little bit different there. You definitely can feel it when you're holding on to these. Now, the overall durability of these, they both have ceramic shield, but with the new phone, not only do we have titanium, we have a coating on them unless you have the natural titanium color. I actually dropped this one, and you can see there's a little nick here that actually happened from a tile floor. It took some of that coating off. Additionally, in the upper right here at the top of the screen, there's a little bit more of that. So how long this is going to last, if it's going to wear off over a year, is still yet to be seen. There's also been some questions about how durable the glass is on the back, as certain tests show that when you press on it too hard, it actually will shatter. So you have to be a little bit more careful with it. With the stainless steel, basically you're dealing with fingerprints and scratches, so sometimes you would need to polish it out. However, if you want to protect the design, today's video sponsor, Rhino Shield, has you covered. Rhino Shield is known for creating super durable and customizable cases that are perfect for equipping your new iPhone against drops while keeping it looking great. For iPhone 15, there's an all-new MagSafe case with a magnetic pull force that is 2 times the strength of Apple's official products. Rhino Shield also has 11-foot drop protection with their proprietary shock spread technology protecting every edge of your new iPhone. They also have a clear case like this one that won't yellow, and they guarantee it with a 5-year warranty. Rhino Shield even offers customizable cases with your choice of colors for the buttons, camera, rings, and more. There are also many new color options to pick from to suit what works best for you. If you have an iPhone 14 or the latest iPhone 15, Rhino Shield has you covered, and has you covered with their new and improved grip for their Solid Suit and Mod NX cases. And Mod NX can be used as a bumper case without a backplate too. Be sure to check them out in the description and use the code ZOLO10 to get 10% off your order. The displays this year are the exact same size and resolution at 6.7 inches. You have the dynamic island on both, and they both have 2796 by 1290 pixels at 460 pixels per inch. They're 1000 nits at normal brightness, 1600 nits at HDR, and 2000 nits peak brightness. We also have 120 Hz ProMotion displays and always-on displays on both of them. So they both feature always-on displays that you can enable or disable as you see fit. So we have that on both. Really no difference there. No difference in PWM, no difference in viewing angles outside. Everything's the same there, but we do have a little bit thinner bezels on the 15 Pro Max. So you can see that difference a little bit. It's not huge, but it's definitely there and noticeable the first time you pick it up. When it comes to overall speed, the iPhone 14 Pro Max is very fast with the A16 Bionic and 6 GB of RAM. It had the next-gen neural engine, but the iPhone 15 Pro actually has the A17 Pro with 8 gigs of RAM and has an updated neural engine. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few apps. We'll maybe modify a photo, export some video, and see how they do in comparison as far as the overall speed. Speed on a phone can be measured in a couple different ways. Sometimes it's just opening things such as apps. So if we go into games, maybe we'll open a simple one such as Minecraft, see how long it takes to actually load. So you'll see with the 15 Pro Max on the right, a little bit faster. We'll tap on play, tap on create new, tap on create new world, then tap create. And we'll see what it takes for both of them. We'll see how quickly they load here. Both of the apps were closed altogether, and we'll let it load just a moment and see what we've got. So you'll see they're very similar as far as this goes. When you get into the game, I don't really expect too much of a difference as far as that goes. So you'll see we've already loaded on the 15 Pro Max. Now we have the 14 Pro Max. Similarly fast, similarly smooth. No difference there really whatsoever. If we go out, maybe we go into Real Racing 3. We'll let this one load. Again, give it just a moment, and you'll see it's already loaded on the 15 Pro Max. There was a little bit of stutter on the 14 Pro Max, and if we go to Home, we'll just swipe over, go to the Formula One Academy, tap Enter, tap Race, and let's see how long this takes to load. Again, we'll do the exact same test just to see what it looks like. I don't think you're going to see much of a difference as far as load times, but maybe you'll have some more consistent frame rates. So everything seems to be basically the same on both of these as far as that goes. I don't expect too much of a difference with just loading an app or anything like that. And with different games, you're going to get slightly different results, but with this latest generation of phones, I think you'll see the big difference when some of the AAA games come out, such as Resident Evil and the others that they have planned that are full games on the new phone. Otherwise, things like PUBG Mobile and everything is the same. If we go into iMovie, I have iMovie set up with a few different clips that I've actually taken myself. I put a title here and then added the exact same setup to both phones. So 50.4 seconds. It's a 4K video. Let's go ahead and tap done and let's see how long it actually takes to export. I wouldn't really expect any difference here, but let's go ahead and share. We'll share video. I'll bring in a stopwatch here. So you'll see we have the exact same setup, 4K for both. And let's go ahead and tap on save video. So we'll tap save video and start. And let's see how long this actually takes to export this movie. We're almost done on both. I wouldn't expect it to take that long. It's a 4K movie. It actually was slightly faster on the older phone, the 14 Pro Max. So typically when you're exporting video, you're going to find that it's basically the same on both phones. Now let's go ahead and check the heat of the phones, and we'll run Geekbench also so we can stress this a little bit just to see what the actual temperature is like. Now as far as, let's see if we can heat this up and see if there's a difference between both of them, as there's been some concerns with the 15 Pro Max versus the 14 Pro Max. However, today Apple actually mentioned that they're going to update in a future update an issue that was causing overheating for some 15 Pro Max phones. I personally have not experienced this, but many people have. So let's go ahead and run Geekbench. We'll heat the phones up and see what they get to. We're about a third of the way through, and with the thermal camera, you can see here we have about 92.5 or 93 degrees Fahrenheit. It's heating up. On the 14 Pro Max, it's about 91 I saw there, or 92.5. So we'll give it a few more minutes to complete and see what we get, but both of them seem to be about the same temperature right now. So we're just about finished with the Geekbench test. Let's take a look at the hottest point of the phone, and as you can see, 105 degrees Fahrenheit on the 15 Pro Max, and it just finished. On the 14 Pro Max, in the hottest point, we're at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're about 5 degrees difference. If I flip the phones over, let's take a look there. It does not feel hot to the touch, a little bit warm maybe, but not hot to the touch. And then in the hottest points on the phone, the 15 Pro Max there, maybe 101 degrees Fahrenheit compared to 103 degrees Fahrenheit on the back. Now, this is probably because the 14 Pro Max is getting rid of some of the heat on the back glass, where maybe the 15 Pro Max is getting rid of it on the front glass. So there could be a slight difference there. Geekbench scores, of course, are going to be a little bit higher on the new phone, a lot higher depending on when you run those. Now this year, the cameras on the front of the phone are no different whatsoever. In fact, they're both 12 megapixel sensors with f1.9 apertures. They both have autofocus, and they're identical in every way with the exception of the neural engine inside doing some different calculations. We'll test those in a moment, but the same camera's there. On the back, we have very similar experiences as well with the cameras. So on the back of the 14 Pro Max, we have a 48 megapixel f1.78, an ultra-wide 12 megapixel f2.2, and a telephoto 12 megapixel f2.8. All of the same apertures on both phones, the same sensor sizes. However, some of the internals could be a little bit different. But on the 15 Pro Max, we actually have a telephoto lens, a 12 megapixel f2.8 5x zoom, where instead on the 14 Pro Max, we have a 3x zoom. So I thought we'd compare some of this, as we've got some different features on the 15 Pro Max with recording video, for example, recording video with ProRes in log, with 4K 60 with an external connection through USB-C. And in fact, if I spin this around, you'll see that's exactly how I'm recording this now. I'm recording this entire video with a 15 Pro Max with an external drive, viewing it through a monitor so I can see what I'm looking at. So I can link some of these components in the description below, but this video works really well. We have ProRes, ProRes HDR, SDR, 4K 60 with an external controller, or external SSD rather. And then if we tap on this here, we can switch to different log modes and more. So there's some really great capabilities here, and the autofocus has been spot on. But let's go ahead and take a look at some camera samples between the camera, night, day, portrait modes, video, and much more. This is the forward-facing camera of the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. You can hear the microphone from the iPhone 15 Pro Max compared to the iPhone 14 Pro Max and see what the background is like. I think the iPhone 15 Pro Max is doing a little bit better job. They're just in regular mode. They're not in ProRes, RAW, or anything like that, but this gives you an idea of what to expect from both cameras. And with the processing with cinematic video in 4K 30, you can see the processing is a little bit different around my hair on the iPhone 15 Pro Max with the A17 Pro. Let me know which one you think looks best and sounds best in the comments below. And as I stated before, when you take a regular photo with the 15 Pro Max, it actually captures depth information. So we have portrait, we can turn the portrait off, just like it was before you took the photo, or we can go in and edit and actually adjust where we're focusing. So we can focus on this rock here, we can focus behind, and the phone would be out of focus. So this is a really great feature. We can adjust the overall blur in the background, and it just captures this by itself without using portrait mode. So that's one of the big major updates this year, and I showed you some of those photos already, but it's great that you're able to do this. If it sees a person or an animal, it will do it automatically. If it doesn't, just tap to focus, and then it will capture that information no matter what mode you're in. You don't have to use portrait, but you can, and you'll see a portrait in the upper left, and you can just turn it off if you don't want it on by default. Now, battery life on both phones is similar according to Apple. In fact, Apple says both the 15 Pro Max and 14 Pro Max support up to 29 hours of video playback and have the exact same battery life for both, despite the 15 Pro Max having a slightly larger battery. The iPhone 14 Pro Max has a 4,323 milliamp hour battery, where the 15 Pro Max has a 4,422 milliamp hour battery. Both phones fast charge to about 50% in 30 to 35 minutes, depending on the charger you're using. They also have MagSafe, but despite having USB-C, which actually can handle more power, Apple has not allowed a better charging curve. So maybe that's something they'll do in the future, or they're just trying to preserve battery health over time. Now, also battery life throughout the day, I'm finding is actually slightly better on the 15 Pro Max. Now, some of this has been in my testing, but if we take a look at my battery life here, you'll see over the past week or so, of course, the battery health and charging on the old phone, the 14 Pro Max lasted 87% over a year. We're still at 100% on the 15 Pro Max. But over the last 9 days, you can see the last battery when I used this full time, I had about, well, depending on the day, 4 hours and 15 minutes, and used 100% of my battery on the 14 Pro Max. The 15 Pro Max has actually been doing pretty well. 5 hours and 38 minutes, 4 hours and 12 minutes for screen idle time. So depending on the day, I was getting about 4 to 5 hours. I'm seeing about 30 minutes, maybe 60 minutes longer on the 15 Pro Max. So not a huge difference. Technically, Apple says they're no different, but I'm seeing a slight increase depending on the day. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. Now, both phones support 5G and have millimeter wave in the United States. That's what this antenna is for on the side. We have that only in the United States, but we do have 5G support. But the modem in the 15 Pro Max is an updated version, which seems to have better connectivity, at least for me in my experience. In areas where I would have low signal like I do now, I'd have less drop connections. I'd actually be able to connect no problem. And despite it probably being pretty slow, we can test here. We'll just go to speed test. Let's turn off Wi-Fi for now. Go to speed test. You'll see that I actually have a pretty good connection depending on where I'm at. I have 1 bar of 5G. So we'll give it a second to test and see what we've got. Despite having only 1 bar of signal, I have 13 megabits per second down, about 5 to 6 megabits per second up. Not bad considering pretty poor signal, and I'm finding that I have good speeds, good connectivity overall. We also have Wi-Fi 6E this year in the 15 Pro Max. So if you want Wi-Fi 6E, maybe you're in an area with a lot of congestion as far as a lot of different Wi-Fi devices, you may want to consider this phone for that. We also have Thread networking, which will help with home appliances or different things connecting in the future, maybe with other Apple products. Both phones have an IP rating that are identical, IP68, 6 meters for up to 30 minutes, so no change there, and in general, there's not that big of an upgrade this year other than what I've already mentioned. The battery's the same, the screens are the same, the overall build is different, and the cameras are upgraded. That's the major thing. Maybe we'll see some advantages of the processor in the future, but if you're wondering which one you should choose or which one you should pick up, well, if you already have a 14 Pro Max and you're happy with it, going to a 15 Pro Max, unless you have to have the camera or maybe the upgraded processor for some different games, I probably wouldn't waste your money on that. Maybe I'd wait for the iPhone 16. However, if you upgrade every year anyway, you'll probably already have one. But if you maybe have an iPhone 13 Pro Max, then definitely it would be worth the upgrade with the upgraded display, cameras, and more. So from a 14 Pro Max, it's not a big upgrade, but from a 13 Pro Max or older, it's going to be a significant change. So hopefully that helps you decide which iPhone would be best for you. If you're sticking with your older phone or upgrading to a 14 Pro Max or 15 Pro Max, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below and let me know which one works best for you, or maybe you'll wait a couple years until you upgrade. Now, of course, be sure to check out Rhino Shield that I mentioned earlier, today's sponsor, in the description below, and use the code ZOLO10 to get 10% off your order. Of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.